Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. This is a talk video, and today we are covering the newest Datacron set, which ones I think are worth targeting, who I think it's for. We'll touch on the Leviathan update, although this was recorded several days ago, so some of my opinions have slightly changed since the recording of this. But when I made that GL Leia Organa prerequisite speculation video, when I got to cutting, it was really long and this stuff didn't fit within it. So we get additional videos, and we might even get more because possibly this Tuesday we might get another update, hopefully see what those next set of GL Leia Organa requirements will be, and we might be able to test out some of the theorizing I did in that last talk video. And of course we wrap up with the free-to-play gearing of my roster. We are a little over a week from the next Datacron set, and this is a Datacron set that's a little disappointing just because it's really out of reach for a lot of the player base. Like, this Datacron set ultimately is whale food, and that is a large reason why I think we are seeing this note here, where for this set specifically they're reducing the relic requirement from 357 down to 135, and I think it's because a lot of these are relating to recent marquee characters that most people are not going to have access to, or even if they do have access to them, they're going to require squads that are going to require a bunch of additional relics in order to actually utilize this Datacron set. Now, if you're in a position to actually utilize a lot of these Datacrons, this is a pretty strong set with some pretty desirable character Datacrons. There are a few things here for the rest of us though, so I'll touch on those as we go through some of the highlights here. With the level 9 crons, the character crons, Jedi Knight Cal Kestis, this one is desirable. I'm actually going to go after it just on the off chance that the event comes back early. If it comes back in the normal cadence though, then this set will have expired by the time it shows up. Maybe though we get like a week of usage or something. Captain Rex, if you got a Phoenix squad, if you have Captain Rex at Relics, that's going to be one you want. Tarful, that's another really solid looking one where if you have all those Wookiees ready, you're going to want it. With the Captain Rex one, you're getting a bunch of extra health stats and speed, which I kind of think it's needed, especially at some of these lower levels, which the Datacron's not going to help specifically with. But he's also inflicting some dots, which are going to be really nice. With Tarful, he's giving the Wookiees some added offense, which means they're just going to boost up faster. They're a little bit slow to get going, at least with the levels that I'm working with them at. And then there's also a nice aspect here. Whenever a Wookiee ally is defeated, Wookiee allies' cooldowns are refreshed. Now, if you pair Vandor on that squad, that means you could potentially get a bunch of revives, and that is going to be causing a lot of refreshes with the cooldowns, which is going to allow Tarful to become much more dangerous and effective. Probably means you take mission off of the squad. If you have Ezra, this one is not really a great one, but if you already have him at Relics, you may as well go for it and give yourself an extra one. You can throw it on like a JML team, maybe after some of the current sets expire, or Kanan for similar reasons if you added them as an alternative for Star Killer squad. Ayla, if you have JMK, you have her at Relics. I'm not going to be adding additional relic levels for her, particularly in part because you got to think about where you're going to use her, and the Qui-Gon slot is one of the places where you would use her, and you'd rather have the Qui-Gon Datacron here, which is much better. That's going to add a bunch of extra offense to the squad. His Datacron alone doesn't look great, but you have to pair in the level 3 and level 6 the level 6 ability, which is going to be turning the Qui-Gon Datacron into a really nice one. Sabine one is really nice, where if you've taken her up to Relics for the raid, or for a Mando squad, or for the Captain Rex squad, this one's really solid with the stacking, damage, defense, penetration, and offense. This actually would be great on a Maul squad, because with Maul, she's going to be assisting all the time. Bo-Katan could set down Vulnerable, which is going to guarantee the critical hit, which which means she could get to that max of 200 really quickly under a Maw lead. So if you have the relics there, then I would do it. I'm not going to go out of my way for it though. It's a little out of reach for me. There's more pressing priorities. Like for instance, the Qui-Gon squad. In order for me to actually utilize the Qui-Gon Datacron, I'm going to need to add relics to Ki-Adi-Mundi at a minimum, and possibly another Jedi. Like right now I like to use Barriss on the squad, and my Barriss is at gear 11. So it's one of those situations where I might be looking at some additional relics to already utilize the one Datacron that I think is the most sensible for my roster. These other Phoenix ones, you're just going to go for Rex, so they're not even really worth highlighting, although the Zeb one's kind of nice. Cody makes a little bit of sense, especially for a 3v3 context, but I'm not going to prioritize that one over Rex. Omega though, this one's out of reach for me because I don't have Lord Vader. I don't have these characters at Relics, the Bad Batch at Relics. But if you do have the Bad Batch at Relics and you've left Omega at lower gear, I would go after this Omega one. This one is very nice. Adding a bunch of armor shred to the match, some exposes, protection up. There's a lot going on in this ability. A lot of parts of this ability that you see in level 3, level 6 abilities on the Datacron sets that are featured here. So it's very powerful. Clone Sergeant, I'd rather go Cody over the Clone Sergeant one. And then the Chewbacca ones, like, you're going to go for Tarful over these, so I would just be re-rolling. When it comes to the level 3 ability, there's not a clear winner. There's some context specific ones. Like whenever allies gain a buff, they recover health and protection. That's only really useful on teams that have a ton of buffs. So like your JMLs, your JMKs, that would be okay. The percent health damage, that's nice, but there's a lot of teams that are immune to health effects, so it's not going to be as universal. The protection up would be nice, but that's only 2 turns at the start of the battle, but it might open up some riskier counters. The basic ability one, like speed up, gaining a buff that can be dispelled, I've always been a little bit more resistant to, but it wouldn't be terrible. The dispel's fine. So like these, I'm not going to kill myself over any of these level 3 abilities. They're all kind of solid. Solid is even a little strong. They're all fine. The faction abilities though, this is where things get a little bit more interesting, and I think for the rest of us there are some opportunities here, and the big one is going to be this top one with the Jedi, the Foresight. I'm going to get 4 of these. Whenever a Jedi ally gains Foresight, they deal 20% more damage stacking. So that's obviously Qui-Gon. This is paired with the level 9 tier ability on Qui-Gon. You get a really nice looking Qui-Gon ability. You could also pair that with like the health recovery. There's enough buffs there where that could make a Qui-Gon squad a little bit more dangerous. And that is a squad that's just going to very quickly ramp up with damage and become pretty dangerous. But there's other Jedi teams to consider. You can create a JKR team with Yoda. You can use a Jedi Knight Luke or JML lead team with Hermit Yoda. And you have at least 3 squads that you can be building out with Jedi here. But the other one would also be JMK and Ahsoka. That's another place where I would be looking at this ability. So JML, JKL, JKR, JMK, and Qui-Gon. You're not going to be able to use all 5 of those, so I'd be looking at 4, and then you have some options for how you want to play it. The other one to be really highlighting here is clones. Because clones we can make a nice gas squad out of. And again, it's the top ability here. Whenever clone trooper ally uses a basic ability, clone trooper allies gain crit damage stacking. So that's good. With gas, they're going to be assisting a lot. They're going to have a lot of opportunities. I'm not going to be looking at creating a clone team. This is just gas lead and the clones becoming a much more dangerous team. It might open up some things for gas to be able to do and counter. At least extends the window in which gas can counter a Melgus, because Melgus is getting a lot harder as players are relicking up a lot of those Sith characters for the Leviathan. And for the Wookiees and the Phoenix, there's only one for each of these. The Wookiees, the top one here, whenever a Wookiee ally is critically hit, Wookiee allies gain Foresight and then defense stacking. That's just going to take an already tanky squad with Tarful make it even worse, that's going to be plenty desirable. And then the Phoenix, the top one, like they always make these top ones the best ones. If you have Phoenix at relics, definitely one to grab one of. Phoenix allies gain 5% counter chance stacking and 10% offense stacking whenever they use a special ability. And under Rex, that means they're going to be using a lot of special abilities. One item we didn't highlight in the topics section at the start of the video is the Datacron store has been changed. It is now going to refresh like other stores within the game, and that is pretty huge. It's going to have, depending on how your Datacron participation was, it's going to have a pretty big effect. For a player like me who's free to play and was very active with Datacrons, it's going to mean a pretty big crystal savings. So with the Datacron store, looking at this stuff in detail, you can see the store is going to refresh in 3 hours right now at my daily reset instead of being on a weekly basis. You can see the items here that I grabbed are all the shard shop currency items, or the shard currency items, whatever they call that stuff. I grabbed all of that. It had if I was a little bit higher, I would even grab this stuff and work on some other Datacrons. I use a lot of these materials to go very quickly, but you can see I'm already building up a little bit of a pocket with the next Datacron materials. But what I would spend a lot of my currency and crystals on under the old model of how the store is refreshed was this data cache here and this data cache here, the 3 million and 1 million data caches. And that meant 800 crystals every week that I was losing out on, because working on Datacrons is pretty expensive. You're going to burn through these credits extremely quickly. So the downstream effects of this change means I'm saving 800 crystals a week. I'm not doing this anymore. I don't have to worry about it. Instead, if you're active during the store refreshes, you can just pick this up. That's 1.12 or 1.25, 1.25 million credits each refresh. So very quickly you're going to be able to build that up so that you can be more active with your Datacron leveling without having to spend as much of your currency on that level 1 node, using as much of your energy on that level 1 Datacron node to get credits, because that is what you spend the majority of your stamina and your energy on, is the credits, not the Datacrons. You'll go after the Datacrons, but you'll start maxing out the Datacrons if you're very active on it pretty quickly, and then you'll just start selling the Datacrons. So instead of having to spend as much energy on credits, you can now spend your energy going after some of the other materials, which is just going to make everything a whole lot easier. It is going to put a lot more pressure on Shard though and the other stores, and I think that's part of the side benefits for CG, because you can see with some of these other stores I've got a decent amount of shard shop currency hoarded here because I never know how I want to convert it, and that's why I bank all this stuff so that I have maximal flexibility, because once you turn it into something you can't really make choices from there how you want to utilize it. It's better to be unconverted so that you have more options depending on how CG makes their choices. So with the Datacron store, now I have a little bit more flexibility. I can take a look, I can convert as much as I need into shard shop currency and go after this stuff. But what this does mean though is the Datacron game has shifted. We are in a new mode of Grand Arena where before, if you participated in Datacrons, you received a benefit. Now, if you are not actively using Datacrons, you're going to be punished for it. There's not going to be excuse of not going after them, because before, a lot of players would just opt out. It was too much effort. They didn't want to put in the time. And now a lot of those time hurdles have been removed, which means it's going to be essentially mandatory to be participating in Datacrons. And that minimum is going to mean that every team that can take a Datacron needs to have a Datacron. You're going to be wanting to push higher on Datacrons. It may even mean things like here, like this level 9 Datacron doesn't benefit this team, but the extra stats do. Maybe you're going to want to re-roll some of those stats in order to make them better, even if the Datacron itself doesn't benefit the squad. Those are the kinds of changes that are going to be happening to the majority of their player base. Historically, that was something that was more Kyber 1. A lot of the very high end of the game would be focused on Datacrons like that. It's going to start filtering down to all the other levels of the game because those hurdles have now been removed. So if you haven't been participating in Datacrons, like, take this as your warning, be prepared. The game is changing. Anyone can be going out, and maybe not anyone. If you have the time, you can be going after this kind of stuff. That is the luxury of my play, is that I do have a little extra time to focus on things like this. Not everybody does. That's the trade-off for me, is I might not spend money, but I do spend time. But this is free to play possible. That is one of the benefits of it and why I've gone after it so hard. And now a lot more people can without investing the amount of time that I have. The Leviathan update is in game. We're going to play some footage over this. You can pay attention or not. It's just me testing out the Radis and testing out the profundity counters. We're just going to let it play through while I talk about this. And I'll acknowledge it a little bit more in detail a little later on. The Leviathan update is in game. We haven't really heard anything from CG about it. Kind of just the update happened. And maybe there was a post. They kind of described what they were going to do, then implemented it, and didn't really say anything additional. I kind of think it warrants saying something more, especially considering how the Leviathan was introduced, how all that occurred. I would very much appreciate hearing anything from CG, something from CG. Just like, is this what they expect? Because if this is how they intend the Leviathan to be, that would be good to know, so that then that's something to critique. If this is still unfinished and they haven't figured out everything, then that would also be good to know. Because right now, like, you'll see it with the profundity footage in a moment, that is my first time using the profundity, not just up against the Leviathan since the update, but against the Leviathan at all. There's only like one in my shard, and I wasn't hunting around for it, so I needed to get matched up against it and then do some testing. I haven't faced it in Grand Arena yet, although I've had opponents who had it. They just never set it on defense. And so what you'll see in this footage is I misplay it completely. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm kind of just figuring out as I play. I haven't watched any footage on it. I'm just kind of going by what I think, and sometimes I'm just not even paying attention. Like, you'll see it with the reinforcements, and I still win it. Like, I'm playing it horribly, and I still win this footage on my first attempt doing it wrong. That's a bad sign. It shouldn't be that strong, so I think it's important that we hear something from CG. With the Radis footage, I'm pretty certain I don't have relics on any of those pilots. So we're looking at a mix of Gear 11 and Gear 12 pilots, except for the Clone Sergeant. I like to have him with the Radis. He does have relics. And I don't think... That's not going to work. I tried it a number of times. That's not going to work without relics, I don't think. I haven't seen how it works with relics, but we're falling short of the ultimate, and it might even just require a different ship, because in order for it to work, I can't be bringing in the Clone Sergeant. There was some other footage I tried without using the Clone Sergeant, but then because I don't have gear on the pilots, they just go down. So maybe there's some players getting some better results, with different gear levels. It's unfortunately not going to be something that I'll be able to rely on until I add some relics to a number of those pilots. But in general, Leviathan, yeah, disappointing. Really, I just want whales to be happy so that they feel like spending in the game, and it's something that CG should be very sensitive to, and we haven't heard anything back yet. And we wrap up with the free-to-play gearing of my roster. This is the gearing that was done on July 13th. And hopefully, if we get another talk video this week, that means we make a lot more progress towards getting caught up with the gearing. And I might start approaching this a little bit differently, because usually what we're reacting is to the gearing that I've already done. You can see here we're taking Sir Junda up higher, all those Calcestis requirements, making a lot of good progress. We are actually done farming those. But one of the things that I don't really talk about in these videos is talking about my next moves. We're always reacting to the last moves, and it might be more informative if I start discussing this in a different way, talking about how I'm working towards the future of the game and not how I just handled the past of the game, or at least my past. So Saul, we make all this progress. He's been solid for me in Conquest. I'll be definitely using him this coming Conquest. There's a particular node he's very useful for, even at those low levels. You can see Leviathan progress here. I'm still not Leviathan ready. Hopefully we'll be Leviathan ready by the time the event returns on the 20th. I do think I will be able to reach it. Might need to take a little bit of crystals. Crystals are a little bit tough. The Datacron store has been updated. If you guys haven't noticed, maybe I should have set that up at the top. But I think that might mean I save some crystals. It's going to cost me more shard shop currency, but it should save crystals, because I've been going pretty heavy on crystals to get things like currency, which is going to be greatly alleviated now. It means using less of your data. Maybe I'm gonna recut this and put a section of it. Yeah, we're gonna do that. I think this is a point worth making. Yeah, but here's the Leviathan progress. And this has been my main focus within the game, is just Leviathan, Leviathan, Leviathan. After that, I will shift over towards Leia. I've talked a lot about this on Discord and on the Twitch streams, and it alludes to one of the previous videos that I made on after the Crate Dragon release. The raid characters now are the GLs. So getting a GL, the most recent GLs, is critical. So you won't see me delaying Leia. I'm going to make her a priority. Here you see me doing some of that prep work. Usually gear 11 would have been my floor, my prep level, but that is now adjusting. And this is the unlock this is where I unlock the Eternal Emperor. What I usually do is take these characters up to gear 11 so that I can use them in the event, see how viable these characters are at lower investment for finishing the event. Because like some players will just take them up to relics right away, but not all of us have the resources, especially as free-to-play players. We don't have the resources to do that. So like one of my successful videos has been the JML event at gear 11 and gear 12. And being able to complete that and farm those ultimate materials in the meantime, because like my brother didn't realize it, and he waited until he was relics, which meant like 2 weeks of not farming ultimate materials because he thought he needed to wait. And it's those kinds of things like I try to inform the player base on. So this was one where gear 11 Sith Eternal Emperor is fine. You will see that I'm going to leave one of the Zetas off. It's going to be the unique one. Right now I'm just double checking what they all are. All these you're going to want. And this last one here, you can wait on that one, not a priority. So Galactic Legend, that one, because it affects mastery, you need him at relics in order to get any use for him. So if you can't take him to relics right away, hold off. You apply that one after you go to relics. Princess Nisa here, as always, marquee characters I take up to gear 11 right away. This is one of the big places where my chirotechs go. It's why I have fewer relics, but it usually pays off in a lot of other game modes like Conquest. And I'm going to be working towards Leia. That is a project of mine, something that I care about and will work towards. Omicron, though, not touching that. The one Omicron didn't touch earlier was the Saw Gerrera one. I'm really curious about. Really curious about. And then just showing the gear progress. We're taking Tebow up. Just now that Ewoks are semi-viable, he's a character worth bringing up. Just to see. Maybe it'll help Galactic Challenges. Maybe it'll help Conquest. Who knows, but it just sets me up. I had held off because he uses a little bit more Carbantes, The Carbantes don't really matter. You can replenish them really quick, and I already have. So he gets brought up. Then same deal, Jedi Knight Guardian. I've got the resources. The last remaining Jedi, she's an expensive character, at least within the old model. But I like finishing characters off. So this is another one that I do this week. Not touching those Omegas though. Not that it matters. Soldier though, here we're too low on the carbs, so we're not going to worry about it. But a character that I did highlight in that Leia Organa prerequisite speculation video, I think he's a very likely candidate, so go check out that one. It'll be at the end of this video. And we will wrap it up there. Again, we have the Galactic Legend prerequisite speculation video that is going to be right here if you want to check out that one. And Conquest, maybe we'll do something with Conquest. There's some things I would like to implement. We'll see how it goes, how my time availability occurs. There's tons of videos I want to be making. But thank you for watching. Be excellent to each other, everyone. This is still Plays Galaxy of Heroes.